My fellow human beings, we all directly and indirectly live in the shade, but not the shadow of Colossus.
On the 16th of July, 2025, a deed was recorded in DeSoto County, Mississippi. 114 acres and a retired power station that made 640 megawatts. The price on the paperwork was $10. Not 10 million, 10. 6 miles north, in Memphis, Elon Musk had just built an artificial intelligence supercomputer with over 200,000 graphics processors inside an abandoned appliance factory in 122 days. You have heard the Memphis part. Gas turbines running beside people's houses. A lawsuit from the NAACP. The Justice Department stepping in on the company's side. Here is what you have not heard. Memphis never gave Elon Musk a tax break. Not $1. So if the money did not move through the tax code, where did it move? Who got paid? And before we finish, I will tell you who that machine actually works for. It is not who you think. Start with the $10, because the $10 explains everything else. That deed did not really buy a power station. By then, the turbines and the boilers were gone. What was still there, still live, still bolted to the national grid, was the connection. The point where a very large machine is allowed to plug into the American electricity system. That has become one of the scarcest things in the United States. If you want a new grid connection, you join a queue. For projects that switched on in 2025, the wait was more than 5 years. That is Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory's figure. And of all the capacity that entered those queues between the year 2000 and 2020, 3/4 was never built at all. It simply withdrew. Nvidia's Jensen Huang said that installing 100,000 graphics processors in Memphis took 19 days, when everyone else takes about a year. You cannot move at that speed and wait 5 years for a plug. So you do two things. First, you bring your own power station, gas turbines mounted on trailers. And here is why the wheels matter. A turbine on a trailer can be classified as a mobile source rather than a permanent one. And a mobile source does not need the same federal air permit. Temporary is not a description of the machine. It is a status on a form. In Memphis, the Shelby County Health Department issued a permit for 15 turbines. In March 2025, lawyers for the Southern Environmental Law Center counted 35 on the site. Second, you buy somebody's old connection instead of applying for a new one, which is what $10 buys. Think of it this way. You are not buying the derelict house at the end of the road. You are buying the driveway, because the council has a 5-year waiting list for new ones. There was also electricity Memphis did supply. To deliver the first 150 megawatts, a substation had to be built. The company paid for it at a cost of around $24 million. Memphis Light, Gas and Water then credits that money back against its monthly bills until the cost is recovered. And at the end of it, the utility owns the substation. That is the utility's own presentation to the City Council in July 2024. Which brings us to the tax break. Memphis offered one. The company said no. Saying no had a second consequence. A tax break in Tennessee comes with a public process. Hearings, a board, a vote you can turn up to. No tax break means no hearing. ProPublica reported that the Greater Memphis Chamber held 12 invitation-only meetings about the project, and no open public sessions at all. The place it landed is called Boxtown. Boxtown was settled by emancipated people in the years after 1863, outside the city line. It is named for the scrap timber its first houses were built from, salvaged from the railway yards where boxcars were made. In 1947, the land beside it was zoned for industry. A refinery followed in the 1950s, a coal-fired power station in 1959. The Southern Environmental Law Center, using Environmental Protection Agency screening data, puts the cancer risk in southwest Memphis at about 4 times the national average. Median household income there is around $37,000. Almost a third of people live below the poverty line. In 2019, a pipeline company proposed running crude oil straight through it. One of its representatives described the route as the path of least resistance. Boxtown organised, and in 2021, that pipeline was cancelled. So when the turbines arrived, these were not people meeting industry for the first time. A woman who has lived there since 1977 told Time magazine that the air smells like rotten cabbage in the early morning and that she has stopped opening her windows. Be careful with that though. The best available measurement, published by University of Memphis researchers in October 2025, found the turbines were contributing minimally to the air pollution in Boxtown. That study's data ran only to June 2025, before the turbine count nearly quadrupled. What the record supports is narrower, and in some ways worse. Boxtown has carried this burden for 80 years, and nobody was measuring the air there at all until residents bought their own monitors. Then there is the water. Memphis drinks entirely from an aquifer, water that is more than 2,000 years old. A household pays about 32 cents per 100 gallons. The campaign group Protect Our Aquifer says the large industrial rate is about 19. But that is not a special deal for Elon Musk. It is the published industrial tariff, the same one the oil refinery down the road gets. But look at what that tariff says. The more of a finite thing you take, the less you pay for every gallon of it. The company promised to fix this by building a plant to recycle wastewater instead. Ground was broken in October 2025. By April 2026, construction had stopped. And then the argument moved across the state line. 6 miles south, in South Haven, Mississippi, sits the second machine on the land that cost $10. In Memphis, the county permitted 15 turbines. In Mississippi, the count went from 18 to 69 in about a year. South Haven is not Boxtown. Median household income there is $78,000, more than twice Boxtown's. Poverty is 1 in 8 rather than 1 in 3. Same machine, 2 completely different neighbourhoods. Look at what each of them went to court about. Memphis sued over air permits and cancer risk, with the NAACP as lead plaintiff. South Haven sued over noise and the value of their houses. One resident, 20 years in the same South Haven street, recorded more than 60 decibels from his own back garden at 10:15 at night. He said it sounds like a jet engine on a runway. When he complained, the mayor of South Haven emailed him back. The mayor said the company wanted houses for its employees, so he might want to consider selling his. And Mississippi, unlike Memphis, did give a tax break. When the governor announced a $20 billion investment in January 2026, it came with a sales tax exemption and payments in lieu of property tax. So the tax break did not disappear when Memphis turned it down. It moved 6 miles. If you find this kind of thing as fascinating as I do, subscribe, because Colossus Builds follows the money behind the world's greatest builds, and the money is almost never where the story says it is. Which leaves the question we started with. Who got paid? On the 20th of May 2026, SpaceX, which had by then absorbed Musk's AI company, filed to go public. Inside that filing was a contract. Anthropic, one of its direct competitors in artificial intelligence, is paying $1.25 billion a month to rent the Memphis machine. The term runs to May 2029. 2 weeks later, a second filing. Google will pay $920 million a month from October 2026 for capacity across both sites. Read that again because it is the whole story in one sentence. The turbines burning outside Boxtown and outside that back garden in Southaven are substantially powering other companies' artificial intelligence. And the builder? The main contractor on both sites is the firm that did the 122 days. On the 30th and 31st of July 2026, it filed liens in Shelby County against the two Memphis properties for more than $136 million. On the 6th of August, it filed a further $431 million in DeSoto County. Its chief executive says the invoices stopped being paid in April after the merger and puts the total owed at north of $600 million. None of that has been tested in court, but the liens are filed and they are public. So, who got paid to build Elon Musk's supercomputer in Memphis? On the contractor's own account, the people who actually built it are still waiting. So where did the money move? 6 miles south into Mississippi. Who got paid? Landowners, turbine suppliers, and a utility that ends up owning a substation it did not buy. And as of the summer of 2026, that machine is working for Anthropic and for Google. And the honest part. Memphis charged full price, and it worked. In 2025, the company paid $12.5 million in county property taxes alone, and by 2026, it was the second largest taxpayer in Memphis and Shelby County, behind only FedEx. Compare that with what stood there before. Electrolux took more than $188 million in public subsidy, opened in 2014, and announced it was closing 5 years later. It left behind bonds the city is still repaying until 2036. One company took the money and left, the other refused the money and stayed. And a quarter of the city property tax from those buildings goes by ordinance back into Boxtown and Whitehaven, because the people there asked for it. Which brings us back to a piece of paper in a county office in Mississippi. 114 acres, a dead power station, and a price of $10. The land was never the point, the connection was. Here is the question I cannot get past. If speed is the only thing that matters, permission stops being something you ask for. It becomes something you root around. So who is left to say no, and where do they have to live? Subscribe, because there is a version of this story in state after state, and we will keep following it. Give this a like, because it helps other people find it. And if there is a build you want us to follow the money on, tell me in the comments.